morning. Welcome to our live talk program. This is Lloyd Grubb here, your host on Revive Reform Radio, doing our Friday morning Wisdom for Living. And our topic for this morning here is a fool finds no delight in trying to understand. A fool finds no delight in trying to understand. And so this morning here, we're analyzing Proverbs chapter 18, verse 2. Proverbs chapter 18, verse 2 as our wisdom and meditation this morning here. So let us pray. Our Father who art in heaven, we thank you again, dear Lord, for the day that you've given us, for life and for strength, and for these words that you continue to share in our lives, that we might know how to live and not die. May you bless us, dear Lord, as we study and meditate together this day. This is our prayer in Jesus' name. Amen. So again, our topic here is coming from Proverbs chapter 18, verse 2. Proverbs 18, verse 2, as we look here at this topic, a fool finds no delight in trying to understand. Fools find no delight in trying to understand. And for meditation, I'm going to be looking at this concept here, to thyself be true. To thyself be true. I'm sure you've heard this phrase in various different ways, that one ought to be true to themselves. So I'll be analyzing this idea here about to thyself be true, and look at the various different aspects of this, and I'll be pulling an article or parts of an article and just share the concept here. And let's read Proverbs 18 verse 2 to kind of get you an idea of why I would take this concept as something to compare this concept to, or this statement to, Proverbs 18 verse 2. Now in Proverbs 18 verse 2 it says, a fool hath no delight in understanding, but that his heart may discover itself. So that his heart may discover itself. So that's Proverbs 18 verse 2. So very straightforward thing. So I want to talk about here, as I say, meditate with you here on this concept of be true to yourself, or to thyself be true. And when you think about this here, it says a fool had no delight in understanding. So to try to grasp a concept, a situation, trying to understand what's happening, not interesting, but that his heart may discover itself. So self-discovery is important. It's important to understand oneself. And on the surface, even this phrase here, I've used it in the past, to oneself be true. One has to be honest to oneself. One can't know what is right and do what is wrong. So on the surface, it sounds good, as they say, on the surface. And so I'm going to analyze in it, not saying that the statement is per se false or true, but that the statement just need analyzing, because one has to contemplate who and what is true. What is it to be true to oneself? Because here, it Bible simply states that the person who is a fool does not have any interest in, or any delight, or they're not piqued, curious. They have no satisfaction in understanding. It doesn't say understanding what, it just say understanding. The concept of understanding, the meaning of understanding is not interesting to them. Is not, they don't take pleasure in it. This person that doesn't take pleasure in understanding, it says in the King James Version here, which is what my main thrust is but that his heart may discover itself. So the person is in a process of self-discovery, whatever their heart discovers. So it's all about what's in their head. They're not trying to find out what is to be discovered from the situation. So something happened. Their first inclination is not to say what happened. Let's try to understand what happened. They're interested in telling you what they think happened before they try to find out what happened. So sometimes I wonder, in this situation here, is it the person is foolish, or is it the process makes them foolish? Since we're meditating, now when you think about that, sometimes I want to talk a bit slower. Sometimes I do talk slow, sometimes I talk fast. Probably some people say most of the time I'm talking fast. But I want you to meditate on this with me here this morning, and for those who are listening in the evening. Ask yourself the question, is it the person is foolish because they're just foolish? Or is it the process, the way they approach life, makes them foolish? 'Cause remember, previously, in Proverbs, it says that a person who holds their mouth, they stop talking, they are perceived as wise. So is it because a person quick to talk, that's what make them foolish? Or is it if they take on a process and they go through life and do life a certain process, it's a mechanical thing, so to speak. It's a thing that is done by choice. That's what makes the difference between a foolish and a wise person. It's just the process, because we are all just human beings, the same brain and so forth. But what's the difference? Because again, a person that just like to tell you what their opinion is and not trying to say, let me ask you, what happened? Because sometimes, there's many times in life I've learned that it could seem very clear cut, and then when you hear from a source or the person what happened, it often blows your mind because it seems so obvious. And then you hear the rest of the story. They always say there's a background story. And when you hear the rest of the story, you're like, oh, but a person who's quick to like hear and run, the break of the news, they run. Are they running because they really grasp what happened, or are they running because they just like to blab out whatever they're understanding? So notice again here, and we're going to keep coming back to this because I think this is very important for life. Because remember, the Bible is not here to stuck a person in iniquity or bad practice. The Bible is pointing out certain things so that we learn. So notice here, a fool hath no delight in understanding. So normally when a person delight in something or take pleasure in it or find satisfaction in something, they normally will show more of an interest, and they're normally not the one to be like dismissing stuff. They take delight in stuff, so they'll pay attention. You see, I always say, every person you ever met, they do whatever they want to do. Somebody say, oh, I can't find time to do this because they have no pleasure in it. But when you have pleasure in something, you're interested in it, you will find the time. It's just how life works. You will make the time. So, as you know, understanding is a perceived intention and meaning. So your language or the speaker, you're trying to perceive or get a grasp. The word perception is is fluid. So the second meaning is to infer something from information received. So again, somebody give you something, you're trying to infer, you're trying to deduce, you're trying to pull out of it. What does the person mean? Not what they say, but what is it they mean? What's the thing that they're trying to communicate? So that alone tell you can have to pause, think. But if you're in a process where you don't want to pause, think, and try to understand, you just like, it's all about me, you run into problem. So let's get a little bit deeper here for thinking. So a fool had no delight in understanding, but that his heart may discover itself. So if you're trying to discover yourself, you're not trying to discover what's happening, because what's happening might be counter to what you believe, what you practice, what your understanding is, what your life's choice is. And all you want to do is discover yourself. Then you run into a problem, because there's times when you come to understand something, and by pausing long enough and taking interest in it and saying, let me grasp what is being said, all of a sudden now you realize whatever you believed and whatever you were living to as your truth was falsehood. But when a person only want to state their opinion, and you see this all the time, whether it be in any type of discussion, on social matter, political matter, religious matters, all kind of matters. If the person aim is just to prove themselves right, they're not going to stop to try to understand stuff. They're not going to try to even expose themselves to contradictory information, because they're trying to live what they understand right. They're discovering themselves. So the heart may discover itself. What's the point? You're discovering what you already know and you are. So the person is trying to tell themselves, and you see this all the time. You try to go to somebody and talk to them, and then they just like shut you down, and they want to be in a situation, and you can. I guess I would probably be in situations, and I'm sure you've been in situations, in professional situations and various different situations. If you're trying to teach somebody something, share something with a family member, they spend so much time talking that oftentimes they think, so why did you come to me? And I've learned over the years just to, you know, don't answer questions that I was not asked. And if I'm answering a question that I was asked and the person is still talking and share with me their answer, or they try to pull out of my mouth their answer, I just learned to switch the conversation and move on. Because you learn real quickly, if you didn't ask me a question, I won't give you an answer. And even if I'm here, I'm just talking to you, but I'm just talking. I've learned because you're wasting your time with people who they just want to hear their own opinion, or they want you to reinforce or to repeat their opinion to themselves so that they can really discover themselves. And as like, well, why come to me ask me a question, especially about a problem? If you already know the answer for it, then go ahead and fix it then with that answer. But my answer is not your answer, and my situation is not your situation. And you're in the situation, but you're still talking. So it's important. A fool hath no delight in understanding, but that his heart may discover itself. So when we, in a few minutes here, I'm going to analyze this thing here. Be true to oneself. This can be tricky. None of it is wrong or right, because if you have a principle that's good and you're living by that principle, then you need to continue living by that principle. But one has to be true to oneself to a certain degree. But then there's a certain point where it becomes tricky, because a person who is foolish often, their foolishness is not because there's something inherently wrong with them. It's not something that because they're born a fool, so to speak. I think it's the process of how the person approach life. They spend too much time hearing their own opinions and trying to discover what they really believe in, because some talk show host tell them that's how you live life, and they follow that principle to their own demise, and they do things that seem very dumb. And you're saying, I'm sure you've been in a situation, I've been in all the time, where somebody lay out a scenario for me, and I'm thinking, why would they do that? Don't they understand that they don't work like that? And then you get talking to the person, and the person start to talk, and you realize, oh, they really don't understand how that works. That's fascinating. How they grow up and live all these years in life, and they don't know that that's not how that thing works. That if you do a relationship, if you do a process, if you do a building, if you do whatever like that, it's gonna fail. But if the person is just in a situation where I don't care, I don't want to hear what anybody say, I'm just going to do it my way, as the song says, then they crash and burn and look foolish, and then you say, oh, that person is a fool. But you're right, it's not the person per se is a fool intrinsically or by birth or by nature or nurture. Probably nobody didn't nurture them like that. Is the process of interacting with things that are supposed to be probably different. I say this also before I go to some of the translation of this verse. There are certain things, especially nowadays with these computers, that they're not intuitively understood. You can't just understand it by looking at it, because the process and the options are so many. Nowadays it's not just you turn this button for volume, or you turn this button for this, or you turn this button, or you push this knob, or you push this lever. Now you have a menu, and the menu can be straightforward, but many times the menu can be very complicated. That there's 10 steps to get to this one thing, and you need many a time now the manual before somebody could yeah, I'm gonna put this thing together and I'm gonna throw in the manual. Nowadays some of these things you can't even understand how it works without getting the understanding from the manufacturer. There's times where you have to call them and say, hey, look, you need to take me through this thing. This thing is crazy. This is like a maze, and I'm getting lost in the maze. I'm somebody that's normally would be in that spectrum, that I'm like, I can figure out just about anything. And there's a lot of these new things you can't figure it out. The person who write the software and build the interface, they put in so much functionality that I don't even know. Sometimes even the tech support can't figure it out. That's how tricky some of these things are. You have to get to somebody that is like upper level to figure out this is how this thing work and tell you how it works, because there's so much functionality, because there's so many people working on the same part. So if you're a person that don't like to understand even a thing that is not is so straightforward, is it's gates and doors and turns, left turn, right turn. If you're not willing to make somebody say, listen to me, sit down, let me explain it to you, because you like to discover yourself, it can mess you up in so many aspects of your life. And so we don't want to be like that. We want to be able to take life, and all of a sudden, if you understand here, by the time we finish here this morning, what Proverbs 18 verse 2 saying, and you not being true to your way of doing life, and you just say, you know what, I'm going to try that. I'm going to try everything in life to first pause and say, explain this to me. Somebody says something, you say, well, okay, can you give me more information? You're going to find all of a sudden somebody going to think, you're so wise. And you didn't say nothing. All you're trying to do is just understand. And you'll be fascinated sometimes. You will ask a question and a person believe that you're an intellectual giant. And you were literally you didn't know what the person is talking about. You literally asked them to explain. But they think, oh, you're smart, because they probably dealt with 10 people before you that before they say, like, explain, they jump. And sometimes asking the question make you sound so sensible, because you're asking a question. And the question you're asking is, you're genuinely asking the question because you don't know. So the English Standard Version renders Proverbs 18 verse 2, just showing up some just random translation here, that gives us a broader image of it, and then I analyze, be true to yourself. So the English Standard Version renders it, a fool takes no pleasure in understanding, but only in expressing his opinion. So a fool takes no pleasure in understanding, but only in expressing his opinion. And you can see it there. The more foolish a person acts in their lives, is the more I would say the person is not interested in gaining understanding. They find it difficult to sit through seminars, read books, so forth and so on, because they like to blab away what they think. And the more they talk is the more you realize there's not much in that brain, and there's not much meditation time. The biblical meditation where you take a concept, a theme, a text, something, and think on it and make your mind weave through various different information. I try to understand what the author is saying. This to me, when a person starts talking about the Bible, say, oh, it was written by a man, or it's an old book. I'm like, you're foolish. It's written by some of the wisest men that ever walked the face of the planet. You're trying to get an understanding of where they're coming from, how they see life. They say it's an old book. We live in modern times. No, that's just a foolish talk. You want that. How much of us get to sit with men, 100 and something years old, and get to talk to them and pick their brain? But you get, that's why, think about it. You go to college normally, and you go listen to a professor with gray hair so he can tell you on whatever subject matter all the wisdom and knowledge and understanding that he has gained over the years on the subject. That's the whole idea. You don't want to go with somebody that's a young whippersnapper that's never lived anything, never learned anything, and he start talking to you. Yeah, I have nothing to share. Yeah, probably a little bit. So again, a fool takes no pleasure in understanding, but only to disclose what is in his mind. Just want to tell you, and sometimes, as I say, the person to me that is always the most foolish person in life is the person that any situation, anything that comes up, they just want to just start blurting out what they think is going on. And you can't talk to them. You just sit there, you're like, man, this is so sad, because you can't get a word in. They just keep telling you, and and you say something to them. You say, okay, I'm gonna hit this with this. I'm gonna say something to them. I'm gonna watch them go. And 5 minutes later, you see like they're winding down, because it's like a nuclear meltdown, and you can see them. It's like their brain is keep replaying what you said to them, what you say to them, until they slow down and say, Repeat that, or say that to me again, or what do you mean by that? And I'm like that, but that's, they said this is, we're half an hour in a conversation, and this is what we were supposed to start at this point. You were supposed to give me a chance to say something, and then I tell you what I mean by that. And then you realize all that half an hour talk was not worth it because you didn't try to grasp what was going on. So I see this all the time, and I say, okay, and I've learned, I don't think so much a person is foolish, it's just the methodology let them look foolish. And somebody said, but isn't that this is what foolish people do? Yeah, but they do something that does not work. And so that's why I believe there's nobody that is condemned in a bad situation. The Bible gives us these things so that, when you're at a place or I'm at a place, I can read it and I can stop for a second if I'm not foolish and think about it and say, do I express my opinion too much? And someone like me would be in a tough situation with this text because, I do a lot of talking. And so I have to spend all the time, sometime listen to others talk, even from various different belief systems that, I believe, it's false. But I listen. They're not talking about something off the wall and crazy in the obvious, in the beginning. So you see other people's way of living life and doing life. In the Aramaic Bible, in plain English, it reads, "A fool does not delight in wisdom, because his heart meditates upon madness." That's a very different way of taking the text. So I wanted to read that. A fool takes no pleasure. Again, the Aramaic Bible, sorry, a fool does not delight in wisdom because his heart meditates upon madness. So this year I included this because this is going to be interesting in a few minutes here when I analyze, be true to yourself, against this verse, Proverbs 18 verse 2. Because here, if I'm in a situation where I've been before I found the Lord and the truth, if you think I'm honest every day and just all that of foolishness and meditate upon a lot of sickness and secularism and covetousness and all that type of stuff, and you be true to yourself, it can be very difficult, because if you think about madness all day long, you meditate upon all kind of evils. To be true to that is in itself is a disservice to the person. So even though I understand what the people are saying, that you have to be true, the word true to yourself is, I still think it's interesting when you think about that idea that a fool does not delight in wisdom. So if a person does not delight in wisdom, wisdom is very painful and it doesn't bring them happiness. Just imagine this person now who meditates upon madness all day long, being true to themselves. Ouch. That can be very painful. You can imagine when they open their mouth, because we speak from what we think. And so the abundance of the heart, the Bible said, the mouth speak. So the person who is does not delight in understanding, meditate upon madness all day long. When they speak, you're like, what? What did you just say? And you can't hear it. I can hear a person, they just have these negative thoughts. Why don't you stop? Why don't you don't do this? Why don't you don't do that? Fail at this, do this. And you listen to the person, you're thinking, oh, this is depressing. And then you talk to the person, you say, let me ask you, are you depressed? And the person say, yeah, I'm depressed. I'm like, man, every time I listen to you, I get depressed. So, sorry. Sorry. Every time I listen to the person, I get depressed. I have this cloud come over my mind. I feel, you feel angry, you feel upset, you feel mad, you feel bad. And then you start thinking, wait a minute. If when the person talk, I feel this way, what happened if, because they're only speaking a small percentage of what they're thinking. I was like, wow, they must be like mad. I was going to say mangry, but they must feel angry, mad, sad, depressed, just feeling the blues, feeling, just, oh man. I was like, and all of a sudden, I just pray for the person, because I realized, wow, that must be tough to live in the head. Because if you're meditating upon that all day long and you open your mouth, and when you open your mouth, people want to fight, people just want to just run and scream, then I'm saying they must be having a hard time living in that mad head, because that's a mad head. And then you want to say to this person, look, to yourself, you don't want to be true. You want to be false to yourself because that's not the truth anybody should live. So anyhow, English Standard Version rendered the text, "A fool take no delight in understanding, but only in expressing his opinion." So the opinion again becomes the focal point. No, sorry, I was supposed to read it. Net Bible, NET Bible. It says, "A fool takes no pleasure in understanding, but only in disclosing what is on his mind." Jubilee Bible 2000 says, "A fool has no delight in understanding, but in that which his own heart discovers." So they just let me to myself, let me to myself. So this whole idea here of discovering or understanding what others have their opinion on the subject matter is not very interesting to them. And so what it is now is like, I want to know. If I'm going somewhere sometime, I say, "Oh, yeah, I remember, Mary went to that same place. You know what? I'm going to call Mary. Said to Mary, Mary, let me ask you this. Is there something I need to know or do, or is there a certain way I need to dress, or what is it I need to know about this place before I go there?" Okay, Mary, tell me. And then I'm kind of prepared. Now, I'm not fully prepared because I've the experience myself, but just simply knowing, because what it is that when you hear somebody else understanding, it doesn't mean that it becomes your conclusion. It just means you get a broader idea. So when you open your mouth, you don't sound like a fool. You know what they say about a person that's foolish is normally they open their mouth wide and they prove to you that they're a fool. But when you have a certain understanding, it makes it sound like you grasp what's happening. So you're always in the process of discovery. Remember, we're always learners. It doesn't mean that we're not learned or we don't understand certain things. It just means there's always a situation that you don't know. What do I need to do? How do I need to prepare? What do I need to understand from the situation? But if the person is just always delighted in understanding or speaking only what they discover or what they understand, well, that could be limited, because I'm gonna tell you, every day I'm learning new things about stuff in life. I'm learning new understanding. There's concepts in the Bible, concept in nature, concept in health that I know, but never ever took it too seriously. Never understand it too much, and then you run into a person, and they're explaining their understanding of the same thing, and they explain it in such a way that it just blows your mind. You're like, wow, I never saw it like that. So now when I open my mouth next time, someone like, "Oh, you're wise." I'm like, "No, I learned. I grabbed that from somebody else. I swiped it. it's it's something that I'm getting from somewhere else." Keep going here. World English Bible says, "A fool has no delight in understanding, but only in revealing his own opinion." So again, same concept here, same idea of fool, delight, understanding, own opinion, its own self. And it stays there consistently through much more translation I didn't pull. Here, Young's literal translation says, "A fool delight not in understanding, but in uncovering his heart." So just the way I think about life, the way I see life, I'm just interested in making you know that. But don't give you a chance to talk. And as I say, normally when you have a person, it's not the person is foolish, I believe. It's the person processes makes them look like they're foolish and make them foolish. One or the other. As I say, if you have a way, this is a good example. Say you have a way to understand what makes a person a fool. I'd like to know that, because it make me better sometimes explain some of these things. Because I see that, say, yeah, the person is foolish, but I see all the time is the mechanics of the person work. No, you might see something that I never saw. You explain it to me, and now I'm like, wow, it just expand my understanding. And so I'm able to help somebody. So when I'm dealing with a person now who goes against what Paul says, they're quick to talk and slow to listen. Right? And Paul says the difference is that we're supposed to be slow to talk and quick to listen. So we're supposed to be flip it. You see, a person that is foolish, they don't want to understand, so they don't want to listen to you. And I'm gonna tell you, you give me a situation, any of you, listen to me right now. I put you in the 10 similar situations where a difficulty arise and a person just want to, this is what happened, this is how it goes, this is a, blah, and they just keep talking it. And every time you try to talk, they just like ram more information down your throat and your ears. It's always going to lead to frustration, anger, and it's going to lead to you look at a person like, you're so foolish. But then I pulled back and I said, well, is a person foolish or what they're doing make them look like fool? And do they create a situation by not trying to understand or hear from another point of view? But when you pull back and say, let me listen, or okay, so this is what you're saying. Then all of a sudden, okay, I see. Okay, it's not as probably bad as how I perceived it at first. Or it's bad what happened, but it was not intentional, or it's something that happened that I just really needed to grasp it. Proverbs 18 verse 2, let's look at now, to be true to oneself. Be true to yourself is a very famous phrase this year, used by Shakespeare and all these different type of people. And just be you. So in our modern world, why I think this is important, because we see a lot of talk where they encourage people to succeed by being true to themselves. And there's songs that people sing that, I did it my way, all this type of stuff. So it's part of the psyche of our society. So I pulled this article from Huffington Post. It's an analysis by, I think, this person called Michael Feely, and he's analyzing what does it mean to be true to yourself. And I thought this was interesting. So I'm not pulling the whole article, I'm just taking 5 points out of the article. And I want to analyze this against Proverbs 18 verse 2, because I want you to think about this in a sense. And I'm not saying the article is wrong or right, because with everything there's nuances, and he's trying to, I guess, grasp it himself. And so I just using it as an analysis, so don't take it as whatever I'm going to say here next is not a knock against the author or a promotion of what he's saying. We're just going to analyze it, and then you're going to hear my understanding. And then if you have an understanding, share it with me, because we're just trying to get the understanding of other people to live better and be wiser. So here it says, here's what pops into my head. This is me reading from the article. When I think about being true to yourself: integrity, belief, personal value, honesty, sincerity, unwavering principle, being complete, authentic, living by what is not acceptable to you, morals, ethics, right and wrong, honor, not being false, truth. So that's what it says, be true. This is what comes to his mind, right? True to oneself. One has to do these things. Now, this is important now, me analyzing here before I keep reading. I'm going to read one more part to finish up. Well, no, I'll stop right there and I get back to point number 2 of his statement. This is how he sees, not the negatives. And later on he says in the article, not the negatives. Remember, one can be true to oneself, and one, there's a principle, somebody that I saw recently, and they have a principle, and the principle is do whatever it takes. Do whatever it takes. And when you do whatever it takes, that's you being true to yourself, right? So do whatever it takes. So if you think about that, if I say to you, be true to yourself, and your principle is do whatever it takes, you could take now some of these same things, probably not all of them, but I'll just take each of them and show you what it is. Because if the person is doing whatever it takes that's their understanding of how to do life. But if I say to you, well, that understanding of how to do life is wrong, and I can show you Bible, reason, history to show you that you can do whatever it takes. Now think about it. Now you could apply some of the same principle to it. You could say, my principle is I do whatever it takes. And I could say, well, I'm going to have integrity to that principle. I'm going to live by my personal beliefs. I'm going to be honest to that. I'm going to be sincere to that. I'm going to be unwavering to that. I'm going to be complete in that. I'm going to be authentic to my principle because that's me discovering me. I'm going to live by what is and what is not acceptable to me, which is not acceptable to me to not do whatever it takes. My morals and my ethics, right and wrong, honor and not being false and true, all of a sudden change by my core principle. I do whatever it takes. And so if I see something and I want it, I'll do whatever it takes. Now somebody said, we mean whatever it takes. Whatever it takes. Sorry. Whatever it takes. And there's people who live by this. And they're true to this. And to oneself they be true. So truth in itself has to go deeper because what my truth is that I live out can be very tricky. Because there's truth that we live by. Sorry, there's truth that we live by that is truths and principles and integrity and authenticity that are not ours. They were given to us by our parents. They're given to us by friends, by family members. And we're living by this principle because that's what we know. It's given to us by our society, our community. And we live by this principle and we say, we need to be authentic. We need to be authentic. We need to be real. I'm a true whatever. You can name the country, the community. I'm true to my roots. And then you say, wait a minute, but you being true to your roots could mean that you're a filthy pig, as they would say. How is that a good thing? The morals that you live by and the ethics you live by, even people in prison have ethics. They have rules. They have gangbangers and mafiosos and all that. So one could say, well, that's not being true to oneself, but that could be true. You're true to those who are true to you. How about that? A person could live by that principle. I'm true to those who are true to me. And if I'm not willing to understand and hear from others, but I'm just willing to discover myself, my heart, my truth, whatever is in my mind, and only my opinion, then that can be very dangerous. Next point here, from the article now again, I'm going to read. Being true to yourself is this simple. Either you live in integrity or you live out of integrity. That is, moment to moment. No other choice, no other way to live other than being true to who you are. You choose one course of action, one way to be. So we're still in point number 2, but I want to, the second thing that I pulled from the article here, I want to analyze this again. Just think about that. Because as I say, there's people who, they have to be true to the hood. They have to be true to black people. They have to be true to white people. They have to be true to, the institution that they got their degrees from. They have to be true to all kind of things that people have to be true to. That can be a good thing and that can be a horrendously terrible thing. Because again, you're living by integrity, moment by moment. You're living up to who you are. But most of the time in life, we are a product of our system. And until we get a radical, different experience, if we're true to that, that can be a terrible thing. I'm true to where I came from, but where I came from couldn't care less about me. What's the point? So there's where, to me, some of this type of stuff fall apart because we have to come to a point where we're willing and we're open to understand other groups of people, understand other situations, understand other people, their plight and what they're going through, so that we can make better decisions for ourselves. But when we say we're true to something, what if we're true to things that are falsehood? What if we're true to things that are lies, things that don't work, things that are true, that are real, but we saw our parents go through it and their life was a disaster, and we're going to go through it and be true to that, and our life is going to be a disaster, and we're like, yeah, we'll be true to that. Whatever we're being true to being addicts or fiends, caffeine or morphine or, any of the fiends that make us become addictive. We're true to that because we like to live our life high. What if I like to be lazy and bum out? What if I like to be a workaholic? Why is that a good thing? Because that could be something given to me and given to me by my parents. And then I live out true to that and I'm always faithful to that, but it's killing me. So this is why understanding and trying to grasp and look and listen to try to not always discover oneself, because you could be discovering what was given to you, what was nurtured in you by yourself or somebody else, and you're being true to that. So again, to me, the concept is good per se on the surface, but deeper it becomes problematic. Notice here, I love how the author, this is the writer of the article, is saying, the author and spiritualist Don Miguel Ruiz describe it: be impeccable with your words, speak with integrity, say only what you mean, avoid using the word to speak against yourself or to gossip about others. Use the power of your word in the direction of truth and love. So this is describing here, this person is a spiritualist, and he's saying here to be in the true direction of truth and love. And this is true only to a degree of what you understand is truth and what you understand is love. Because as you know, there's ruin in love. Love is, I want to be kind, but there's a limit to kindness. If everybody that asks, you give, that's a principle in the Bible. But there's a limit to that, because there's a point where people ask and ask until you have nothing. And you could be feeding somebody's bad habit. Again, Christ says, anyone that asks if you give, if the person asks you for a coat, you give them, or your cloak, you give them your coat, and so forth and so on. So somebody can say, that's true, I'm going to live by that true. Well, hold a minute. So if somebody has an addiction and they say, give me a house, you give them a house. Give me a car, give me a car. You just give them everything, because you said Jesus says that. And next year the person dropped dead of a drug overdose. Was that really being true? Was that really being love? And then did you really understand exactly what Christ was saying? Was Christ encouraging you to feed people bad habit? If you know the story of the prodigal son, when the prodigal son comes back, was Christ saying that the father should not just clothe him and give him a ring, so to say sell everything else that the father has and say, I love you so much, son, and I want you to be happy, and I know you have to be true to yourself and yourself, and that you like to buy the prostitutes and live righteous living. So I'm going to sell everything else I have and I'm going to give you the money. Go ahead, enjoy yourself and be true to yourself. Because Jesus said I should give you more than what you ask. I should go the extra mile. Knowing that the son is just going to take the money and burn the rest of his inheritance. The father's now inheritance and the brother's inheritance on horse. How far do you take that? So this is where now, to me, understanding what is true and what is true love affect in many of those statements that Christ said, because there's things that Christ says that he contradicts himself, so to speak, if you're not meditative and understanding a broader grasp of what he's trying to communicate. In other words, he's trying, help those who need to be helped, but you don't destroy people. So that's in itself. So the concept is good. You have to really be true and to be loving. But a fool does not delight in trying to understand. So if you're not trying to understand, you just grab something and say, that's true, you live by it, and then you hurt yourself. And you can't do that. You could even hurt others. Another point from the article here, as he's trying to analyze, and we're trying to analyze this idea of, the fool just delight let me read it here again so we can stay on course. A fool just delight to discover the heart may discover itself. So he's just interested in what he understands and not anything else, which is no way to live life. And I see it all the time. And as I say, in sitting as a person as teaching pastoral situation, I find all the time that there are people who will come to church to teach. They're not interested to learn. And I believe that, a church is a place that is an interchange of teachings. But there's people who they like to hear themselves. Now notice here, it says here, tell the whole truth. Is another concept of being true to oneself. You'll probably shake things up and disrupt some people, but when the fallout settles, you'll be saying, this is who I am. This is how I intend to live my life. This is the real me. In the process of speaking your truth, you'll garner something wonderful: authenticity, living your values, and your belief. He says Gandhi gives us three wise and basic guidelines to live your values: be congruent, be authentic, be yourself. So here are some points of view that I think is interesting, because again, as he analyzes this concept of being true to oneself, he's taking note from people who are sage, people who are very wise, and he puts forward this idea here. So he says here real quickly, we can just get this here. He says probably is you might shake things up when you tell the whole truth. Now again, remember, the foolish person is moving in a direction where they're trying to discover themselves or share their own opinion. They're just interested in their own opinion. And I realize in life, and you probably know that one of the bigger truths that one has to live by is that not everything that comes in your mind you need to speak, and not every time you need to be this, blabbing out to the world or saying out to the world who you are, because there's things about yourself that can be so ugly that you don't need to share it. And sometimes I've seen this where you run into you're in a supermarket and you somebody say something to you and you get into a conversation with them randomly, and they start tell you some things about themselves that you think, man, you should only be saying this to like your pastor or your therapist, or bring it to Jesus if you believe in God. Why are you telling me, a stranger, all this information? What is wrong with you? I don't need to know all of that because I don't know you like that. And I'll probably see you this time and never see you again for the rest of my life. What's the point? But somebody could say, oh, the person's just being true to themselves. They're shaking things up. They're making the chips fall where they may. But it has nothing to do with me. It's have to do with the point that there's something wrong with you. What is it that you would want to be telling me all that stuff? It's just you're disturbing my day. I just don't want to walk around with these thoughts in my head. I was just here just with a list of what I want to buy in the supermarket. That's always in my mind, just getting the stuff and getting out of here. Now you're telling me all this stuff to disturb my day. And probably my whole week. Probably take me 7 days to clean that stuff out of my head. So this is who I am, he says you must say, and this is how I intend to live my life. This is how the society is kind of doing nowadays. Everybody, as I say, is coming out of the closet on just about anything. But there's things I don't want to, why tell me? There's even time I've been counseling with somebody and I tell them, just stop. You don't have to tell me anymore. I think I get the point. I see where you're going. Unless it's absolutely important for me to hear, don't hear it, because remember, my brain, is fragile. You try to blend it here. You try to whip it up. And, that could just be too much, So this is the real me, there's some real authentic person. I say, some people say, I'm just being authentic. I'm like, no, stop. Don't be authentic, you. It is disturbing. Just say what I was on my mind. That's who I am. I'm a person that just say whatever is on my mind. No, you need to stop being yourself and be a new you. For you, New Year's resolution, say, I'm not going to be me anymore. I'm going to try to be like Jesus. And that's going to be better, because you is just is a mess. That's why I say Gandhi said be congruent. Congruent is in harmony. Harmony with what? Be authentic. Again, authentic is what? Because one could be authentic, but it's not good. One need to change from that authenticity to something better, because authentic you could be a failure, could be a disaster. It is that process where, as I say, in the society, they keep telling people to be yourself, be true to yourself. You have to discover what is inside. But what's inside, as I say, the problem what's inside is that many of what's inside of us, we think it's us, but we don't know it's something that was nurtured into us by our parents, or something that we inherited from them that is bad. So be true to yourself. Somebody who grows up and they see their parent, say, working 60, 70 hours a week, they could say, that's me. That's who I am. And you say, is that you who you are or who your parents are? You don't need to be true to that. Another person could grow up and they see their parents in a poor situation, constantly collecting money from the government, and they're just constantly living off whatever the government is giving out, whatever cheese the government is giving out, they're taking, and they're trying to figure out how to live off the system, and they don't have a proper work ethic, and it's life is like that, and they're okay with life like that. And somebody say, why I see them, I say, oh yeah, so what you do? So, oh, I just spend all the time bombing out on the beach. So how you eat? Oh, I live off the government. And I'm being true to myself, I'm being authentic. And I'm like, that's not being authentic. You need to go understand life a different way and go live life a different way. You discover yourself too much. You need to stop that and go discover something else. And that's why I love the idea of Jesus, because you get to discover somebody else who have a different work ethic, different moral principles, different teaching, different way of looking at life. And you go learn, and then when you try to be true to that and to him, you live a better life. But being true to myself could be a disaster, because being true to myself could be being true to what my parents thought life was all about, and I'm gonna get the same results that they got, and the same solutions. The way they come to problems and the way they solve problems, I'm gonna solve the problem the same way, and I'm gonna say, oh, that's just me. I'm just being true to myself. And I've experienced that, and it's something I constantly have to be discovering and rediscovering, because I could be doing life a certain way, and I approach difficulties, approach problems the same way. All to find out, oh, I see, I'm not really approaching it my way. I'm approaching it my parents' way. That's what they taught me. They didn't sit me down and teach me like, hey, Lord, I'm going to teach you how to do life this way. What it is, they were doing it by osmosis, so to speak. They did it, I observed, and I learned without they telling me. So as I grow older, I'm doing life a certain way. If a problem comes, I do it a certain way, then I look back and I say, I think I remember seeing my father or my mother doing it this way. And now I'm repeating them and thinking I'm being authentic to me. So one has to be true to oneself to a certain degree. One has to understand that. So you can grab two more points here. Another point from the article, the author says here, in analyzing the concept of being true to oneself, as I say, a fool, it doesn't take delight in understanding. They just like to discover their own opinion or their own self, which can be a mess there. But here it says in the article, in life there are no mistakes. This is what the author says. Everything is a learning experience which help you know how you can be true to yourself. Now we quote from Joan of Arc, was passionate with living your beliefs. Quote, Joan of Arc here says, one life is all we have, and we live it as we believe in living it. But to sacrifice what you are and to live without belief, that is a fate more terrible than dying. Now, as I say, to some degree, I can accept the fact that to living without belief, but living without belief is great, but I need to understand, well, what is my belief, and then understand what is others' belief. Because I could be comfortable in my failure. And this is easy for human beings. We're at a point, and, we live in this life where you can see a person, they're miserable, but they're comfortable. They're not moving out of their position because they're doing life the way they understand it. And it's killing them. So although she said live a life without belief, there's many people living life with belief, and they're living horrible lives, miserable lives. But they're gonna keep trugging along. They're gonna keep moving along because that's who they are. They're being authentic. They're being true to themselves. And it's killing them. And it's easy for somebody who has certain accomplishments to say, yeah, this is how you need to do life. And they themselves many times die miserable, failed lives. But because they succeed at a certain point. Real quickly here for sake of time, here again he analyzes the concept from this time Shakespeare. It says, remember, you are the game changer, you are in charge, you are the boss of you. I've heard people say that, oh, I'm my own boss. Yeah, sure. You're managing yourself terrible. Now, if you manage yourself well, then probably I need to come to you and talk to you and you tell me, hey, look, Lord, I'm going to come to you and say, hey, I want to understand how you manage you, because you seem to be doing a fine job. But there's many people manage themselves horrible, and they're their own boss, and they're managing themselves into bankruptcy, literally and socially, spiritually, physically. I've known many people bankrupt themselves multiple times, spiritually, morally, socially, and they just keep chugging along, living out their truth them, before they say, Ben, I probably need to get some more understanding of what am I doing wrong? And that's when life starts to flourish for them. But you know people, they've financially bankrupt themselves, morally, spiritually, multiple times. And life becoming more painful, and they don't need to be true to that. They need to change and start to say, you know what, man, I probably need to go to Moses and start to pull from his writings and start to understand how to do life. Start to find Jesus. I let Jesus teach me how to do life because I'm bankrupting myself here. I'm going bust. But anyhow, this person say you are the game changer, you are in charge, you are the boss. You set the ground rules and boundaries. No one else has the superb power or pleasure, which is true. No one else should live your truth. Sometimes that's very true. There's truth that people live in, and nobody should live it. Only they should live that truth. Because that truth is very abusive. And that's why we go to the Bible to find what is the truth. So you will know this truth by Shakespeare. Shakespeare says, "This above all, to thine own self be true, and it must follow as the night the day. Thou canst not then be false to any man." Well, you can't. So that's what Shakespeare says. To thine own self be true. You've heard it said. It's something that is said. It's something I've even said here. And it's true. If you're true, if you're living by truth, to be true. But as I say, there's people right now that you know that are very depressed in life. And they're being true to themselves. They're living by their principle. And every day they get up, they're disappointed, they're angry, they're mad, they're sad. When you come around them, even before they talk, you start feeling angry, mad, and sad. And you'll be like, man, stop being true to yourself. Start being false to yourself and be true to Jesus. And life will be better for you. To thine own self is not always good to be true. Now, as I said, we started off with Proverbs chapter 18, verse 2, and I'll read the King James Version again. A fool hath no delight in understanding, but that his heart may discover itself. So you don't try to understand anything else. You just want to discover what's inside. And it's just interested in its own madness, its own self-discovery, its own opinion. And this can be a problem. Because as I said, in life, others have a brain too. They say 2 is better than 1. 3 is even greater. You wage war through wise counsel. You seek the counsel of those who have been through situations that you're going through. So you can learn from them and avoid all of the mistakes. There are things that you're going to be true to that is not good because there's things that you learn from your parents. You learn from your society. And it is just making you a mess. There's people that are true to their community. They're true to their race, if you want to call it that, their ethnic group. They're true to things that they don't need to be true to because it's falsehood. If you're going to a life and you're miserable, you see everybody around you committing suicide, gangbanging, doing whatever, and you want to be true to that, you can't be true to that. You say, man, I have to live a different way. Let's go seek and go find. And I'll tell you, the thing that you need to learn is the Bible because the Bible is truth. You need to find Jesus because he's true. And when you start to be true to that, you'll find out, wow, my life is better. And you don't need to be true to yourself. A lot of times, we just need to be false to ourselves and true to God. And hopefully, all of that make a mash. If it doesn't make a mash, contact me, ask me to explain a little bit more because I probably confuse you a little bit here. But these things sometimes are very difficult to grasp, but I'm trying to grasp it so I'll be practical as much as I can for your spiritual well-being and moral well-being, social well-being. Let's pray. Our Father, who art in heaven, we thank you, dear Lord, for your love and your mercy. We thank you, dear Lord, for the truth that you give us. We thank you for the character that we see in Jesus Christ that is truly a reflection of thee. I pray, Lord, that we might be like thee and that we might true to the commandments, true to love our neighbor as ourselves and to bless others within truth. Be with us, dear Lord, as we go the rest of this day, and may thy Spirit go with us, we pray, for Christ's sake. Amen. Thanks for being with me here on Revive Form Radio. Looking forward to talking to you Monday morning where we should talk about motivation. Until then, I pray that you may continue to walk with the King.